Let me show you how to format a block quotation following the MLA guidelines. The first thing to note is that a block quotation is only necessary if your quote is 4 or more lines long. And to tell if it's 4 or more lines, you just type it out in your own text in your essay or paper, and you can see that this one is definitely 4 or more lines. What we do is we press enter, and we also take away the quotation marks. Okay, so we can take away the quotation marks here. And then we indent the whole thing 1 tab space. There we go. We don't need quotation marks now because it's pretty obvious that this is a quote. It's set apart already. The other thing we do is we remove the final punctuation from behind the parentheses or afterwards, and we place it beforehand. As you can see, almost everything we do is the opposite of a normal quotation. This particular quotation has a quote within a quote, and before we use single quotation marks, but that's no longer necessary because we no longer have to distinguish the single from the double quotation marks, so we can just replace this with double ones. We started here with a particular kind of signal phrase. A signal phrase is your words that introduce the quote, and we've used a formal introduction type of signal phrase. It ends with a colon, it's a complete sentence. It's kind of a formal way to introduce the quote. You can do it differently, so you could use a very short kind of signal phrase, something like McBeard writes. You can even run your signal phrase directly into the quote without any punctuation if you can make the two make sense grammatically. But in general, it's good advice to use a formal introduction most of the time because with a longer quote, you really need to kind of set it up and tell the reader what to expect. Notice the spacing here. We don't add extra spaces between the signal phrase and the quote or even afterwards. And after the quotation, there's no need to indent most of the time because this is not a new paragraph. Most of the time, you really want to talk about the quote before moving on. In the instance that it is a new paragraph, then you would indent it, but that is very, very rare. So far, we've talked about prose quotations. Let's briefly focus on poetry. The spacing with poetry is often different. And to determine if you have a block quotation, just look at the original text and count the number of lines, and then try to replicate those lines as accurately as possible. So in this particular case, let's say that there was some weird spacing in the original, as poets sometimes do. You would try to replicate that and keep it as it was. We've also given the line numbers, which is typical. If you want some extra clarity, you could write lines beforehand. But if you are quoting multiple times from poetry, the reader will catch on pretty quickly. Now, this particular poem has short lines, but let's look at an example of where one line is quite long. And what you do there is if it continues past the end, you indent it a little bit, so indent it a tab space, and that tells the reader that this was originally one single line. It can also happen that because of the length of your line, the citation doesn't fit at the very end. Should that happen, and let's just pretend that that happened here, then you would right align this particular citation. So we're just going to right align it, put it at the very right margin of the page, and it looks a bit funny, but that's the official rule. That is it for formatting a block quotation using the MLA guidelines.